Dear unknown friend, this episode will be our conclusion of the essay, Some Light on the Path. For those just discovering our work, please watch parts 1 and 2 of Some Light on the Path, which you will find on our channel as episodes 3 and 4.
The occultist is the happiest of men, for he has ceased to fear. He knows that there is nothing to be afraid of, and he has outgrown many of the superstitions of the race, which keep many people in torment. He has left hate and malice behind him, and has allowed love to take their vacant places, and he must necessarily be happier by reason of the change. He has outgrown the idea of an angry deity, laying traps in which to enmesh him. He has long since learned to smile at the childish tale of the devil with cloven hoofs and horns, breathing fire and brimstone, and keeping a bottomless pit into which one will be plunged if he should happen to forget to say his prayers, or if he should happen to smile at God's beautiful earth. Some fine Sunday, instead of drowsing away an hour listening to some long drawn-out theological sermon. He has learned that he is a child of God, destined for great things, and that Deity is as a loving father, yes, and mother, rather than as a cruel taskmaster. He realizes that he has arrived at the age of maturity, and that his destiny rests to some extent upon himself. The occultist is necessarily an optimist. He sees that all things are working together for good, that life is on the path of attainment, and that love is over, above, and in all. These things the occultist learns as he progresses, and he is happy, happier than those who live for happiness. Seek in the heart the source of evil and expunge it. It lives fruitfully in the heart of the devoted disciple, as well as in the heart of the man of desire. Only the strong can kill it out. The weak must wait for its growth, its fruition, its death. And it is a plant that lives and increases throughout the ages. It flowers when the man has accumulated unto himself innumerable existences. He who will enter upon the path of power must tear this thing out of his heart, and then the heart will bleed, and the whole life of the man seem to be utterly dissolved. This ordeal must be endured. It may come at the first step of the perilous ladder which leads to the path of life. It may not come until the last. But, O disciple, remember that it has to be endured, and fasten the energies of your soul upon the task. Live neither in the present nor the future, but in the eternal. This giant weed cannot flower there. This blot upon existence is wiped out by the very atmosphere of eternal thought. The above admonition is a summing up of the first 3 precepts, as explained by the 4th one. It bids the student seek out in his heart the relative idea of life and cast it from him. This relative idea of life carries with it the selfish part of our nature, that part of us which causes us to regard ourselves as better than our brother, as separate from our fellow beings, as having no connection with all of life. It is the idea of the lower part of our mind, our merely refined animalism. Those who have carefully studied our former course will understand that this part of our mind is the brute side of us, the side of us which is the seat of the appetites, passions, desires of a low order, and emotions of the lower plane. These things are not evil of themselves, but they belong to the lower stages of life, the animal stage, the stage from which we have passed, or are now passing, to the stage of the man existence. But these tendencies were long ages in forming, and are deeply embedded in our nature, and it requires the most heroic efforts to dislodge them, and the only way to dislodge them is to replace them by higher mental states. Right here, let us call your attention to a well-established principle of occult training, and yet one that is seldom mentioned in teachings on the subject. We refer to the fact that a bad habit of thought or action is more easily eradicated by supplanting it with a good habit, one that is directly opposed to the habit of which one desires to get rid. To tear out a bad habit by the roots requires almost superhuman strength of will, but to crowd it out by nursing a good habit in its place is far more easier and seems to be nature's plan. The good habit will gradually crowd out the bad one until it cannot exist, and then after a final struggle for life, it will expire. This is the easiest way to kill out undesirable habits and traits. Returning to the subject of the relative qualities of the mind, we would say that selfishness, all the animal desires, including sexual desires on the physical plane, there is much more in sex than physical plane manifestations. All passions, such as hatred, envy, malice, jealousy, desire for revenge, self-glorification, and self-exaltation, are also a part of it. Low pride is one of its most subtle and dangerous manifestations, and one which returns again and again after we think we have cast it off, each return being in a more subtle form, physical pride being succeeded by the pride of the intellect, pride in psychic attainments, pride in spiritual development and growth, pride in moral worth, chastity and character, the I am holier than thou pride, and so on. Again and again does pride, the tempter, come to bother us. Its existence is based upon the delusion of separateness, which leads us to imagine that we have no connection with other manifestations of life, and which causes us to feel a spirit of antagonism and unworthy rivalry toward our fellow beings. Instead of recognizing the fact that we are all parts of the one life, some far back, struggling in the mire of the lower stages of the road, others traveling along the same stage of the journey as ourselves, others still further advanced, but all on the way, all being bits of the same great life. Beware of pride, this most subtle enemy of advancement, and supplant it with the thought that we are all of the same origin, having the same destiny before us, having the same road to travel, brothers and sisters all children of God, all little scholars in life's great kindergarten. Let us also realize that while each must stand alone before he is able to pass the test of initiation, yet are we all interdependent, and the pain of one is the pain of all, the sin of one is the sin of all, that we are all parts of a race working toward race improvement and growth, and that love and the feeling of brotherhood is the only sane view of the question. The brute instincts are still with us, constantly forcing themselves into our field of thought. Occultists learn to curb and control these lower instincts, subordinating them to the higher mental ideals which unfold into the field of consciousness. Do not be discouraged if you still find that you have much of the animal within your nature. We all have. The only difference is that some of us have learned to control the brute, and to keep him in leash and subordinate and obedient to the higher parts of our nature, while others allow the beast to rule them, and they shiver and turn pale when he shows his teeth, not seeming to realize that a firm demeanor and a calm mind will cause the beast to retreat to his corner and allow himself to be kept behind bars. If you find constant manifestations of the beast within you, struggling to be free and to assert his old power, do not be disturbed. This is no sign of weakness, but is really an indication that your spiritual growth has begun. For whereas you now recognize the brute and feel ashamed, you formerly did not realize his presence, were not aware of his existence, for you were the brute himself. It is only because you are trying to divorce yourself from him that you feel ashamed of his presence. You cannot see him until you begin to be different from him. Learn to be a tamer of wild beasts, for you have a whole menagerie within you. The lion, the tiger, the hyena, the ape, the pig, the peacock, and all the rest are there, constantly showing forth some of their characteristics. Do not fear them. Smile at them when they show themselves, for you are stronger than they and can bring them to subjection, and their appearance is useful to you in the way of instructing you as to their existence. They are an amusing lot when you have reached the stage where you are able to practically stand aside and see them perform their tricks and go through their antics. You then feel strongly that they are not you, but something apart from you, something from which you are becoming rapidly divorced. Do not worry about the beasts, for you are the master. While the above quotation from Light on the Path includes all of the foregoing manifestations of the lower nature, it seems to dwell especially upon that delusion of the lower self, that dream of separateness, that exhibition of what has been called the working fiction of the universe, which causes us to imagine ourselves things apart from the rest, something better, holier, and superior to the rest of our kind. This manifests in the emotion of pride, the peacock part of our mental menagerie. As we have said, this is one of the most dangerous of our lower qualities because it is so subtle and persistent. You will note that the writer speaks of it as living fruitfully in the heart of the devoted disciple, as well as in the heart of the man of desire. This may seem strange to you, but it is the experience of every advanced occultist that long after he had thought he had left pride behind him, he would be startled at it appearing in a new phase, the pride of psychic power, the pride of intellect, the pride of spiritual growth. And then he would have all his work to do over again. Let us state right here that there is a kind of pride which is not a manifestation of the lower self. It may be called the absolute form of pride, if you will. We allude to that pride in things as a whole, a pride that the whole is so great and grand and wonderful, and that we are parts of that whole, that the intellect we manifest is part of that universal mind, that the spiritual growth we have attained is a bit of the great possibilities of the race, and that much more is ahead for all the race. But the danger line is reached when we begin to shut out some others from that universal pride. The moment that we leave out one other manifestation of life, no matter how lowly, from our universal pride, then we make it a selfish pride. The moment we erect a fence with anyone on the outside, then we are indulging in selfish pride, for there is no outside at the last. We are all inside. There is no place outside of the all. When you feel a pride with all living things, with all of life, with all of being, then you are not selfish. But the moment you place yourself apart in a class, whether that class be composed of but yourself, or of yourself and all of mankind, except one individual, then you are yielding to a subtle form of selfishness. The last man must not be left out, cannot be left out. You are possessed of no quality or attainment that is not the property of the race, something that may be attained by all in time. All that you think is superiority is merely a little more age, a little more experience on this plane of existence. Your pride is the foolish, infantile pride of the child who has just passed out of the baby class in the primary school and looks condescendingly upon the new flock of little ones who are just entering the class from which he has just passed. To the eyes of those in higher classes, the second-grade scholar is a subject for a kindly, pitying smile, but the little fellow does not know that. He feels big and gives the peacock quality full sway. Now, before we leave this illustration, let us say that the little fellow is justified in feeling proud of having accomplished his advancement. It is a worthy feeling. The peacock part comes in only when he looks down upon those below him. This is the substance of the folly of pride, this feeling of superiority toward those still in the lower grade. A feeling of joy from work attained, heights scaled, is not unworthy. But let us beware of the attendant feeling of superiority toward those who are still climbing. There lies the sting of pride. Extract the sting, and your wasp is harmless. If you feel tempted toward self-glorification, sometimes just remember that as compared to some of the intelligences who have long since passed through your present stage of development, you are no more than is the intelligence of a black beetle as compared with your own intellect. That to the eyes of some of the greatly developed souls, the everyday life of even the highest of our race on earth today is but as are to us the antics and gambols, fights and tumbles, of a lot of Newfoundland puppies whose eyes have been opened but a few days. Just remember this, we say, and you will get a better idea of just what place you fill in the scale of intelligence. But this does not mean self-debasement either, not at all. As low comparatively as we may be, we are still well on the way of advancement, and great things are before us. We cannot be robbed of a single bit of life. We cannot be denied our heritage. We are going on and on and on, to greater and still greater heights. But impress this upon your soul. Not only are you going there, but all of mankind besides. Yes, even that last man. Do not forget this. On the plane of the eternal there cannot be such a thing as selfish pride. Understanding has forever wiped it out. This giant weed cannot flower there. This blot upon existence is wiped out by the very atmosphere of eternal thought.
Dear unknown friend, we hope you have found some value in these last 3 episodes, presenting the essay, Some Light on the Path. We will continue with the essay, Some More Light on the Path, in the new year. Please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment if you have found value in our work, and if you would like to be on the list to receive benefit from our seasonal pujas and universal benedictions, please visit our website, templeofthelivingfire.com. Thank you and namaste. The Philosophers of the Living Fire.